All right, so we are recording. Coming to you from Syracuse, New York, my old stomping grounds. I'm in Brian Hudson's office. Brian is a new district manager in Empire, and I'm able to do some field visits in upstate. And this is actually where Justin Neefus and I met. Justin's on with us today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Great, great. Thanks for taking the time to do this here today. Not only a best friend of mine in the personal life, just a stud in the business. And I know you got a ton going on a Monday in the late summer. So thanks again for taking the time here. Let's just jump into it a little bit, get to know you. What year did you start with this, Justin?
Started in 2000. So yeah, 2000. June 11th of 2000. Yeah.
June 11, 2000?
Yeah.
What office?
Started in the Albany, New York office. My hometown is just south of Albany. So Albany, New York, and then moved out west to Rochester and Buffalo over the years. So it's cool that you're back in Syracuse. Like I said, the old stomping grounds there.
Yeah. We were first met in Buffalo. We ran the North and the South territories respectively. 2006.
Yeah.
Seems like a lifetime ago. We sound like our parents now. It's, back in the day, 25 years ago.
when I was your age, yeah.
Yeah, when I was your age, walked uphill both ways.
Yeah.
Justin, you were promoted to DVM from Buffalo, and then promoted to DVM to Cavalier Division. It was actually carved into a brand new division. First year, correct me if I'm wrong. First year moving from Buffalo to Ohio, Akron, and first year from being a DM to a division manager, you superseded $1 million in sales that year.
Yeah, that was our first year. It was first full year. So I got promoted in 2011, came down, kind of got things rolling in that fall, and then 2012 was our first $1 million year.
Right up the gates. What are your career sales at now?
I think we're at 21 million at this point. It just hit 20 million earlier this summer, so just shy of 21 million.
Yeah. And for those of you who know, obviously, and for those of you who don't know, as a divisional manager, when you hit $20 million in career sales, you are a Hall of Fame inductee. So Justin's name and picture will reign in Olean forever on the Hall of Fame wall, and he's going to get his induction here soon in the next couple of months. So congratulations on that $20 million in sales. It's great.
Yeah, thanks, man.
One of the things I've been looking out for this year has been just nice things to happen, good, positive things. And Justin broke the all-time record in SC2 in the Midwest region. Justin, tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had a big push. Our push is about 3 weeks in the Midwest region, and the record was held by old division manager Nadine McGowan. So the pilot record was 292,000, and our staff set a goal to beat it. And coming into the last week, we made it happen. Finished at 297 for the push, and it's about a $50,000 swing on the last 48 hours. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. Justin, what are just some things you're proud about, man? In the business, out of the business, both, either or? What are some things, some highlights, professional and also personal?
I think in the business, proudest accomplishments would have been the promotion to DVM. Getting the Midwest region, of course, has our Marty DeVitchmich Distinction Award, and that was great to get that. Court of Honor, Hall of Fame. Outside of the business, just great to have a family that is a loving family. Mom and dad are now both retired, and it's cool to see them enjoy a little bit of their life. So it's kind of a proud son moment to actually see mom and dad enjoying more of their life and traveling a little bit more. My wife, Katie, beautiful wife, Katie, she's awesome. And just got a good spot here in Ohio. So, which is on my deck here today, hanging out, doing a little planning and whatnot for the week and for the campaign here. But I'd say those are my personal accomplishments, proud moments, I suppose. So
great. Don't forget to give a shout out to Oz Striker.
I will. Yeah, Ozzy Posy. So my little 150 pound or 15 pound, Doberman thinks he's a 50 pound cuddle dog, but he's
like a little lap dog.
Yeah.
Well, dude, let's jump in here. I know that just take the first minutes to get to know you, and some of the accolades are just fantastic. And seeing us from 2006 of waking up every day at 5:30 to go to Buffalo campus and chalk to now being a divisional manager, 20 million in sales. It's awesome, dude. It's just so amazing. And I know we're kind of that equal level. I'm proud of you. So I'm excited for the people to take some information from this talk and, apply it to their own business. So really quick, let's start off with what you wish you knew as a DM. I love asking this question because it gets you a chance to reflect, but not play devil's advocate of, oh man, I should have done this, and help our newer managers. Knowing what you know now, you talked about some planning there. You're planning today and doing this. Like, what are some things that that you wish you would have known as a new DM?
It's a great question. I mean, really, you kind of mentioned it, but as a new manager, getting up early, going into advertising, and I think that one of the things that early on in my career was always a strong point was just kind of the blunt force trauma to things, getting up, doing it, acting. I guess to answer your question, I wish I knew how to plan better, how to plan my time, how to plan my efficiencies. I guess I wish I knew how to do that better, because I think when you combine the hard work with smart work, you get a lot greater results. And I think it took me years to really get to that level and understand it to a point where I could make it work for me.
It's funny you say that, because when you talk to people, it's hey, how to plan. And I know I've had this on other calls where you hear it so much of what to do or what you should be doing that you just kind of assume that you're doing it. I would love to get into how you plan, man, like how methodical that you are. And I love that you're out in the back deck, planning for today. Let's say, hey, and not being a divisional manager, Justin Neefus, with a staff and the ability to do that. Let's go back to our first fall, back in 2007, brand new DM. What would you wish you would have done a little bit more with planning? What would you wish you would have known with the aspect of planning?
I guess I would have loved to have learned how to delegate time to plan. So kind of planning time. And, out on the deck today, this morning was, all designed to plan this week. We've got a DVM staff meeting over the next couple of days. So my morning today was in the calendar scheduled to plan for the week, make sure that we've got our office and division, where it needs to be before I leave for a few days. So as a new manager, I wish I had done that more. I guess I wish I had planned my planning time more. I guess the idea of taking, a day to plan a month and, a couple of hours to plan a week, I wish I had done that sooner in my career versus just waking up and, going with the day and rolling with the punches. Wish, going into it with an action plan would have been ideal. And I think personally, I see this in our managers here in Cavalier and even across the region. I think a lot of times that, it happens where a manager ends up, focusing so much on the results and the hows to do something, versus, the what's to do, but they got to focus on the how to get there, and I think that if I were a new manager all over again and could go back in time, I would have focused a lot more on the, how to create a result versus the actual result itself.
Okay. The delegating the time, the planning to plan, that was super interesting, where it's like, if we're not moving, we're not being productive. That was at least my mindset as we were younger. If we're not on campus, if we're not just reacting to things, we're not being productive. And I think I really confused activity with productivity. So you mentioned such a valuable point that you're planning a time to plan. Yeah. It's awesome. I think it's so simple, but if we're not working, you're not being productive. And I think that way, take time to plan, and then planning to plan is actually pretty important.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes, 1 hour a week can make such a big difference. You don't always have to be moving in order to move your ship or move the needle in your organization. Sometimes it's taking a step back and, putting some thought into it. The mental work sometimes is more important than the physical work. So taking an hour each week and just, on a Sunday. You know, I started doing this as a DM later in our career, where I would take an hour, it'd either be a Sunday or a Monday morning, and just go through that week and have my action plan. You know, and now it's, you know, I'll take a retreat. I'll go away for a weekend and, you know, take a few days even, and just plan an entire campaign, and then revisit that plan on a week-to-week basis during that hour or so of planning. So I think that mental work that goes into the planning is as important as that the physical side of actually going out there and just sometimes spinning your wheels and not even knowing what direction you're about to go.
Yeah. That's great. I think like when you're younger, you don't really know what to do in the business. You just go. It's almost like you just react. And I don't think that's horrible, by the way, because I'd rather have you sit there and do something than nothing. But now that they've got their first summer underneath their belt, for some of them have their first, you know, year plus underneath their belt, it's taking the time to reflect. You said take a retreat. And I think that you literally just went on a retreat with your guys or your DMs, correct?
We did. Yeah. We just got back this weekend, took about 48 hours and just went out into the woods and buy some water and, you know, did some fishing and hanging out. And it was a great time to not only reflect on this summer, but put a plan in place for the upcoming campaign. And the idea there is that these guys now can leave that weekend not only rested and, you know, thoughts cleared, but have a big picture, you know, view of what needs to happen so they can get the results that they want to get.
Yeah. I love this. I'm working with John Kane a lot in the new role here at HQ, and he told me something a little while ago that just blew my mind. And you literally did it, right? You literally went on a retreat. He just says sometimes you need to retreat to advance and not run away, you know, not cower, not hide. It's just retreat. And I love the fact that you literally went on a retreat. But even if you're a district manager right now, don't have the resources to step away from your office, an hour is a retreat. And you retreat that hour to reflect to then advance for the next week. So it's not like a perfect science, but is that a pretty good number to start with? Like take an hour to plan your week, take a couple of hours to plan your week. What would you say to a new person that allow yourself this amount of time for a week?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously it depends on where somebody's at in the business, but
Yeah,
you know, I
average,
can certainly,
every day.
yeah. I mean, I think that taking an hour even every morning, and if that didn't work, could you put 2 hours or so into planning on a Sunday morning, you know, and if it's not in the office, it could be out in the park, you know, it could be at a coffee shop, somewhere where you're out of your daily grind or the daily routine of your office environment. Put yourself in an area where you can allow your mind and thoughts to just kind of run. And so, you know, if it's a couple of hours during a planning session, then maybe each morning you review that plan for, you know, a half hour or so. If not, putting an hour into a plan every morning at a coffee shop or again over a breakfast or something like that. So it depends on where the individual's at in the business, but I think for the average new manager to put in a couple of hours a week and just make sure that they've got a plan in place and that the plan is an actionable plan. You know, we've been talking a lot about this in Cavalier, where a lot of times people plan. I've seen this happen with our guys. They plan these numbers and they plan these results. You know, I want to get 10 recruits out the door this week, or they set a goal. My goal is, you know, President's Banquet or whatever the case is, you know, but there's no action plan to it. So we've been coaching our guys on, you know, when they put a plan together and submit those plans, what I want to see from them is I want to see that plan is nothing but actionable steps. I tell them that they should be able to take that plan and essentially put it into a daily checklist for themselves so that by the end of the day, they know that they either did it and or did not follow that plan. So if it's a checklist format, they're essentially checking it off each day. And at the end of the day, they're going to put their stamp of approval on the day. And so I think that's been making a big difference in our guys, and just the way that they've been focused on planning is to make sure that they've got the time, first of all, but then that they put a plan together that's filled with action steps for the day and therefore for the week.
It's amazing. I'm sitting with Brian here, and this is pretty much our first session of like planning. And now that the fall it's slowed down a little bit from the summertime, Brian asked some amazing question this morning as he's literally sitting across the desk from me. I'm just kind of smiling at him like, so hey, I want to hit President's Bank, but or I want to hit 10K for the week, or I want to hit X. And I think a lot of us, and even Brian has said this himself, it's like a result base. But if you can take that, even just like selling 10K for a push week, right? That's the result. But then what's the step before that? Quantity of sales. What's the step before that? Quantity of demos, all the way down to phone numbers. And I think that that's the exact same thing that you would do was what you're saying is, hey, I want to hit this. And what's that final number? It's great to have a vision for, but then what does a step before that look like? What does a step before that look like? And then at the end of it, you've got all these checklists to do per day. So if I'm hearing you right, it's not about what you did at the week or what you do for the campaign. It's about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And if you've done your checklist day to day, I'm not saying whatever happens, happens, but you got to be proud that you're following at least a plan of action steps, not just did I hit a number or did I not hit a number?
Yeah, the plan's not to win the game or win the Super Bowl. The plan is you go into that game every single Sunday and you have a playbook, and that playbook is going to get followed. And it's, we've all probably done this where we watch a game, you're watching your team and you start cursing out the TV and you're like, what is this coach doing? How do they not give the ball to LaShawn McCoy on the, 2-yard line, right? And everybody freaks out, but the bottom line is the coach followed his plan.
Yeah.
And so you may not get the result, you may not win that game, but you'll have a better structure and culture and organization if every day you come into it and you've got a checklist. And this is what I'm doing, and this is my game plan. I'm going to follow it.
It's what a different mindset. It's like, because you hear sometimes do anything to win. And you might win that one game, but really in the long run, we're losing a little bit because we're teaching an inconsistency of how to think. Like, you might win that game, but at what cost?
Right.
So
or do everything to win, but you got to know what it is that's going to allow you to win.
Exactly.
You got to understand the what. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you mentioned too in sales, but it's the same with the recruiting side of things. So, I want to get 10 people out the door. Okay. Well, based on your efficiencies and your numbers, how many people actually have to be there on day one of training for you to launch 10? Well, if I want, 15 people in day one of training, then I need to know my interview efficiencies and on a day-to-day basis, how many people I need to be recruiting. But if I need to be recruiting X amount of people each day, then I know I would need X amount of interviews in that schedule, and I've got to generate that number of touches. So now that leads me into, my PR program, social media programs, whatever it is, but I can't do any of that if I'm just, blindly shooting, the gun in the recruiting direction. It's a checklist. So by the end of each day, I sent out X number of Facebook messages. We did this with Snapchat. We did this with Instagram. We did called X amount of PRs. We put up X amount of posters on campus. We chalked X amount of classrooms, because we're allowed to do that on our campuses. Yeah. And if that's the checklist, then by the end of the day, we should be able to recruit X amount of people, which sets me up for the goal that week.
You're simplifying it to a way that when you wake up on a day-to-day basis or your game plan for the week, you're not thinking, you're just delivering. Where a lot of
I don't want to think at all. I don't want to think at all. I don't want my guys to think. My thinking time is my planning time. So, I'm gonna, I've always been the guy, who will strap up the helmet, go out, execute the game plan. But I don't want to necessarily have to think on my feet unless I absolutely have to. So I'd rather have that plan. And I think for a new manager, that just simplifies the entire process of taking the thought out of it daily. I mean, we've had how many conversations as new managers, like, dude, am I even doing the right thing? Is this even what I should be doing with my time right now? I mean, the amount of early morning conversations with you on campus and the late night conversations after the day, like, I don't even know what the heck I'm supposed to be doing half the time. So I think for a new manager, if they can take that thought process out of it each day and just have that checklist again, that action plan each day, makes the job more enjoyable. And at least, and I said this phrase before, but at least then you put your stamp of approval on the day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the Justin Neefus stamp of approval. Like, I did what I set out to do that day. And whether I, won the quote unquote game, I at least end on a win because I did everything that I set out to do that day.
It's so, I mean, and there's some other managers out there that are just very, very elevated, but what the advice that you're giving is applicable to every single person in our business, brand new to veteran. And I love it. I mean, there's so many things down. It's actionable steps on a checklist, but they stem from where you actually want to go. Work backward checklist, stamp of approval. Now, you had said some important ingredients, right? Because our recipe is the recipe for success. And we sometimes catch up and just keep on doing what you're doing. But I think that, like, if we say keep on doing what you're doing, we're assuming that they're doing the right things. So what are some things that you definitely want to look out for in a day-to-day to make sure that our management staff has in their schedule as important ingredients, so they can know that they're having some rocks along the way that are very beneficial to build upon?
Yeah, I think this time of the year, as we transition into the fall and school year, it's really, all about recruiting. For us, it's, that's what our schedules are focused on, is the recruiting side of the business. So for a new manager, I would say if they have access to campus, it's campus in the morning, whether that's posters or chalking. We have our Morgantown manager, Dryas Jones, who every morning this past week was on campus and generated just from chalking and putting some posters out, 50 campus touches, and that's not huge. I know there are some people who take 200 applications in a day, but for a new manager, 50 touches is positive. That creates hope, and that's going to obviously turn into some really good things. PRs are huge. We've been going through all of our summer's unreached PRs, reaching back out to people. Social media, and I think that's different in each region. So just having that in the plan, I think daily, whatever that means for that region specifically. But that's what we've got our guys focused on. It's campus, it's PRs, it's social media, and it's having at least 2 to 3 interviews a day so that people have a chance to actually schedule an interview.
Yeah.
This time of the year, it's my belief that if a new manager is doing that, where 90% of their time and energy and effort is focused on recruiting, and they back that up with a training seminar, they back that up with an advanced training in a team meeting, that they're going to do well. That right there is going to set them up to have a successful fall campaign.
So I love it that you said recruiting, but then you listed 3 activities. So sometimes I think the misconception is, well, I have interviews in my schedule, or I ran 4 interviews last week, or yesterday I ran 2 interviews. Of course, that's different per each office. So right now, if it's just you, maybe 3 interviews every single day isn't the best, or maybe it's exactly what you need. Of course, talk with your DVM about that. But when you said the focus of 90% recruiting campus, now if you don't know what you're able to do, it's asking your SPM, also asking Mallory Powell. Her address or email address is on her corporate server. She has access to every single campus and what to do. So if you don't know, let's make a step in the direction to ask and reach out and see what we can do. PRs, and then of course the PRs, you can go off on so many different directions. Summer unreached. The people can, before they go to school, can you ask them to duplicate themselves? So for your current team or those who just left, could you have them write down a new list to replace themselves for this upcoming fall? And then you said social media. And those 90% of actions, right, will create the interview process. So, dude, awesome.
Yeah, I don't think, for me, recruiting, running the interview is not recruiting. It's the product of recruiting.
Ding.
So I think that sometimes that's the misconception. You can't run an interview. So, a manager's like, I'm recruiting all the time, I've got all these interviews. No, that's the product of recruiting, so it's can't run the interview without people being set for interviews.
Love it. Let that marinate just for 1 second. The interview is the byproduct of recruiting, right? That's great, man. Advanced training, team meeting, PDI, PRs, campus, social media, interviews. I mean, those right there are 7, 8 actionable steps daily. And then, of course, you have your training, which obviously you would do 1 part of the week. And I think if you've got those in there, speaking with your DVM or taking that from this call and making sure that those things are in your your calendar daily. And by the way, planning, even if it's just 15 minutes a day to retool it, fantastic, dude. That's great. Justin, the last part here, the last question, and then I want to go into our lightning round of fun questions, which I don't think you know of. So we're gonna have a little fun at the end here. But right now, the fall time, the big focus on President's Banquet, and you've really helped shape my expectations. And I've heard you speak to your DMs that right now that a brand new DM, they might only be focused on President's Banquet, or they may not even know what it is. But could you shed a little light as we wrap up here, your opinion on producing for the fall, going into the new year, how to manage a contest, but also grow your business, and take it whatever way you want to go into. But I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, so one President's Banquet, 4 or 5 times, whatever it's been now, and that means I've also missed a handful of President's Banquets. And I think the one thing to keep in mind, if I could again do it all over again, or if I'm communicating here to new districts, it's one, to realize obviously we want to work hard for a contest, we want to work hard for President's Banquet, but it's also okay if you don't hit it. It doesn't, I guess for me, it's understanding that something like President's Banquet, any type of a contest or payoff, it's not about the payoff. Like President's Banquet's awesome. You guys know it, you've heard it. There's a lot of fun stuff. I mean, whether it's golfing for $400 or $500 per round that they pay for, a massage day, at the best of places in the world, or the dinner. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that P Banquet is an awesome experience, but to me, it's never been really about a 48-hour contest. For me, it's as fun as that 48 hours is. It's much more about doing the right things. It's building a business model that's going to lead to success the next year. So do I want to hit P Banquet? Absolutely. Do I want my managers to hit P Banquet? Absolutely. I want to have them experience that. But I would much rather my district manager is focusing on building a foundation and building the right culture for 2020. I would rather my new district manager sell $80,000 in new business with an awesome foundation, culture, and standards as they move into 2020. I'd rather that happen than them sell $115,000 in new business. They sold 90% of it themselves, and they have zero culture or zero standards for the new year. So I think just the advice I would give is that we all want to win the payoffs and win these contests, but the contest isn't there for a 48-hour payoff. It's there to prove that you've actually done the right things and laid the right foundation so that you can move your business in a positive direction moving forward.
Just such a healthy perspective on how to utilize a contest or a payoff to build your business, not build your business to hit a payoff. By the way, I would never turn down a company trip. I would never turn down a payoff trip, but it's about not putting that as your ceiling. And that's a common theme, by the way, of what I've heard from other managers, is that it's not a P Banquet or bust. It's do these fundamental things, and ideally, let's get there for sure. But if not, just know that you're building it. So when January 2020 hits, spring 2020, summer 2020, you've just worked so hard to lay the foundation that business is going to skyrocket, and it's foundational. It's got a positive vibe going into it. That's great. Yeah, I'm not doing this to hit a 48-hour payoff. I'm doing it to build my business and move forward. So someday you can get the deck, the dog, the beautiful wife, the division manager.
Yeah, I mean, if we're running the business only to hit a payoff, then we're ultimately setting ourselves up for failure. There's going to be always something more. There's always going to be, another payoff. And I think it's important that we run the business to build the right type of a structure and culture and organization. And the payoffs are just that. They're a payoff because we did that.
Cool. So work hard to get there, and if not, just make sure we're doing the right things along the way. So next year you get there, but that's great. Yeah. As you wrap up here, I can't thank you enough in appreciating the time and the energy you've given. I think the planning aspect was awesome to have today. It's given some basic rots. Let's sit down for a couple hours a week to plan the week. Let's sit down for a week to plan the campaign. And I mean, you could scale it from there, but let's just start now. This week, let's get a couple of hours underneath our belt to really plan this week, maybe next week, and have actionable steps versus hoping the results come. Fantastic.
Cool. Glad to help.
Before the lightning round, what's a fun 60-second story of President's Banquet from Justin Neefus' perspective?
Either firing off automatic weapons, or sometimes they'll do something special. I can't speak on behalf of all the years, but sometimes they'll do something nice for all recipients. And one year we got some custom shirts done, and it was pretty cool to go get a custom shirt made and, be there with my colleague Brett Wiggins, who is about half my size, and it was kind of a cool experience. And yeah, it was fun. So.
I think I've heard of the story. Didn't they call you to confirm the size of your bicep? Like they wrote down the number wrong or something?
Yeah, I don't make it. Yeah, she wrote the number down wrong, and or it needed to double check. So Brett and I were walking back, and again, Brett's an amazing friend of mine, and about half my size, and we're walking back, and the woman calls me, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, we could do that. And she had called because we needed to go back so she could resize me or whatever. And Brett was like, oh, you got to go back. I'm like, yeah, she called. She needs to get the measurements on my arms again. And he was like, oh, they didn't call me for that. I was like, yeah, sorry, buddy. Sorry, man. Yeah.
Great. Dude, okay, so the last minute here, ready? This is called lightning round of questions, and they are very, very simple questions. And you either say the answer, and if you can't get it, pass. But we got 60 seconds of running time. Okay? So no need to be nervous. Let's do this up. Let's do this up.
I've known you for 15 years. That's an impossible statement just for you to make. Don't be nervous with them.
Be nervous less. Okay, 60 seconds. Ready? Okay, what is this?
It's a phone.
It's a telephone. Very good. Yes, okay. On the commercials with a candy bar, if you eat this candy bar, you become less angry.
What's that?
If you eat a candy bar on TV, how that's like this angry person, it's like an
actor. Hangry. You get hangry.
And what is the candy bar that when you eat it, you become less angry?
Snickers.
Very good. What temperature does water freeze at Celsius?
0.
Very good. What is your favorite Cutco knife?
Cleaver.
You're doing awesome. How many states begin with the letter B?
Pass.
Okay, very good. 0, correct. How many states are there in general?
56.
56. Who's your favorite superhero?
Batman.
Batman. Who was the 16th president?
No idea. Pass.
Very good. Dude, you got 27 questions correct. You now lead it. Who would win in an arm wrestling match, you or Trey Ketchum?
I'm going to be polite and say Trey.
Trey also said Trey. He's like, of course I would win. Hey, I love you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your energy. Just great tips on planning and a simple perspective on it. Dude, thanks so much, man.
You got it, man. Hope this helps. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
All right, you too, man. See ya.